Hey everybody, Suz here, back with another one of our weekly keto recipes for dinner. These are low carb meal ideas to help you stick to your keto diet. If you're new here, we make these every single week. Well, we just took a little vacation for the holidays. Happy New Year to you all. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd love to have you hit that subscribe button and join the crew. Let's go ahead and get into the video. First up, we made this awesome keto chicken biryani. This was so delicious. This was definitely my favorite recipe of the week. So to start with, in a large pot over medium heat, I added a teaspoon of ghee. To that, I'm adding a half a cup of chopped up red onion. Now the original recipe I will link down below added a whole onion, but I'm always trying to decrease the net carbs as much as I can without sacrificing taste. So after I cooked those up for just a couple of minutes, I'm adding a combo of a half a teaspoon minced garlic and half a teaspoon of grated ginger. Stirring that in, I'm adding the equivalent of one jalapeno that I just ran through a mini chopper. Now, I usually don't use fresh jalapeno. I just take about 8 to 10 little slices out of the jarred jalapeno and run those through. After I stir those in and cook it for probably about a minute, I'm adding a pound of ground chicken and using my handy dandy meat chopper upper that's always linked in my Amazon store and in the description box to break this apart, and I'm just continuing to cook it until it's cooked through. Adding a half a teaspoon sea salt, a half a teaspoon ground turmeric, a teaspoon of garam masala, a half a teaspoon ground coriander, fourth a teaspoon ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground cayenne pepper, and then I am just mixing that all in really well. Now the recipe called for a half a cup of water. I opted to do chicken broth here instead, and I am just scraping the bottom of the pot to make sure we get any little bits up. Cook in a non-stick, you don't really have many. To this, I am adding a half a cup of chopped cilantro, as well as a fourth of a cup of chopped mint leaves, as well as about 2 cups of cauliflower rice. Now, this is just frozen cauliflower rice. I did thaw it a little, but it's mostly still frozen. Putting that in and just stirring it in really well for a couple of minutes until it all starts breaking apart some, and then I'm going to turn the heat down to medium-low, I guess, and pop the lid on and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. This is what it looks like when it's done. My entire house smells so phenomenal from cooking this recipe. As I said, it was my favorite of the week. I highly recommend you trying it. Here it is plated up. Adding the cayenne pepper definitely gives it a little kick, and the cinnamon gives it just that unique, awesome flavor profile. You could definitely adjust the level of heat to this recipe. Next up, I made these awesome keto stuffed burgers. This is a Carolyn Ketchum recipe. I will link it down below. So to start with, over medium heat, a large skillet, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of avocado oil, and then to that I'm adding about a medium onion sliced up, putting about half a teaspoon sea salt on top of that, and we're going to cook these down. And I'm actually going to hop over to my audio on the actual video here and go into my little caramelized onion rant for a second. And while we're doing this, I just want to take a second and mention that a lot of people are scared of eating caramelized onions if they're following a keto or a low carb diet. They're under the misconception that somehow it adds sugar to the onions, and that's just not true. So it does do a lot of interesting things, the chemical process. So I encourage you to look that up if you're interested in that sort of thing. I find it very interesting to see what happens on a molecular level with onions and other foods when you caramelize them. But what I will say is, if you're already able to tolerate onions on a ketogenic diet and they fit into your macros, then caramelizing them is not going to impact that in a different way as far as carb intake. It's basically just freeing up the simple sugars that are already present in onions naturally and breaking them down in a way that makes them easier to digest. It makes them taste sweeter when you eat them, but it's not adding anything extra that's not already there. It is changing it quite a bit. And again, look that up. I just want to mention that because whenever I do cook with onions, caramelized onions, people are inevitably going to come after me. This is actually a Carolyn Ketchum recipe, and she is a ketogenic cooking genius as far as I'm concerned. And of course, I will link her original recipe down below. But the most important thing, I think, when you're cooking with caramelized onions is to know that they shrink down quite a bit after they cook. And so if you don't pre-measure, when you're going into it, you could inadvertently consume too many. So like if you were cooking up like some steak with some caramelized onions or something, you don't want to, accidentally consume too much. And hopefully this sound clip will come through well. In this video, as I'm just kind of recording this on my actual camera, you can hear some babies crying in the background probably, while I'm filming instead of including it in the voiceover part. So back to the cooking, we're just gonna keep cooking these down low and slow about 20 minutes. We don't want them to burn. We just want them to get nice and dark in color. We don't want them to burn or to get crispy. And once we have our onions to the color and texture that we want, we're just gonna cut the heat off on those and stick them to a separate dish to the side. Now I'm taking 8 ounces of brie cheese and just cutting it in half. We need 4 ounces for this recipe. I am leaving the moldy casing on it, even though I have a weird thing about eating that part of the brie. Comment down below if you do too, or if I'm just strange. Now I'm chopping all of that up into about 1-inch little pieces. We are gonna be making 6 burgers in this recipe, so just wanna make it easy to stuff into the burgers. Now getting a large bowl, I'm adding 2 pounds of ground beef to that, along with a half a teaspoon of sea salt, a half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and then getting in with my hands, I'm just going to mix this together really well. I don't want to overwork the meat though, because that will make our burgers not as tender. And I did go ahead and take a baking sheet and I just lined it with some foil here and separated that meat mixture out into 6 balls. Then I have our caramelized onions. You can see how they kind of shrink up there. And our brie cheese. And one at a time, I'm going to take each ball, split it in half. And I'm just gonna make kind of a thin patty on the bottom, get it about to the size and shape I want, and then I'm gonna add a 1/6 of the caramelized onions straight onto that patty, as well as about a 1/6 of the brie cheese. And then I'm just gonna take the other half of that meat and kind of mash it down in the middle to start with, and then flatten it out on top, and I'm just going to seal the edges, make sure all the little nooks and crannies are full so that our brie doesn't come oozing out of our burger. And it's really pretty simple. I actually have one of those little gadgets to make stuffed burgers, but it comes together so quickly and easily. So there you go, and just repeat that process for all 6 of your burgers. And once I have them all done, I am gonna go through and just take my knuckle and put kind of a shallow indentation into each burger, because I just find that helps them retain their size and shape more when you fry them up, and they don't shrink up as much. Now, oh my gosh, my dad bought this as one of my birthday presents, this awesome electric skillet. I will try to find a link for it and link it down below. It's even dishwasher safe. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm going to be cooking my burgers in this because I can do all 6 at one time. So I have it set on 350. You can do yours on top of your stovetop over medium heat. You could even do a good sear on each of your burgers and then put them in a baking dish and finish them off in the oven, whichever method you prefer. But oh my gosh, this was a great cooking experience making these in the skillet. So 350 heat. Adding all of these in, and I'm cooking mine about 5 to 6 minutes on each side to reach a medium temperature, and then using this awesome new flipper he also got me. Look how easily that flips. I'm just going to turn all of these burgers over to the other side and cook them for 5 to 6 minutes as well. And while I'm doing this, I went ahead and steamed some broccoli in the microwave with a little bit of butter, and here they are plated up together. Now I did go ahead and cut this burger in half so you could see the ooey gooey goodness of the brie and caramelized onions in the middle. This was excellent. My husband really loved this recipe, and I did too. I mean, you can never go wrong with one of Carolyn's recipes, and you can never go wrong with burgers, right? Next up, I have this awesome cheesy zucchini chicken casserole. I will link the original recipe down below. To start with, in a large mixing bowl, I took 8 ounces of softened cream cheese, added 3 eggs to it, 1/4 of a teaspoon sea salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon ground black pepper, and I'm using this large spoon to try to cream this all together. About 10 seconds into this, I was like, why didn't I grab a hand mixer? Obviously, depending on how soft your cream cheese is how easy or hard this is going to be. Now, after I have that mixed together mostly how I like it, I'm adding in 1/2 cup extra sharp shredded cheddar cheese, as well as 1/2 cup shredded mozzarella. I'm going to mix that in a bit before adding in 1/4 cup of chopped onion, as well as, I think I did 2 cups of shredded chicken. The recipe called for 1.5 cups, but I figure you can never go wrong with extra chicken. Always just cook mine in the Instant Pot. You could do yours in the crock pot or the oven. and I use a hand mixer to shred it nice and fine. Mixing that all together really, really well. Now taking about a 2-quart casserole dish, another gift for my dad. I'm spraying that with a little cooking spray, and I have about 2 cups of sliced zucchini here that I just cut into half moons, and I actually steamed these in the microwave about 3 minutes to just release a lot of the extra liquid so it wouldn't make my casserole all liquidy. And I am pouring those out into an even layer in the bottom of this dish. Now 2 cups of sliced zucchini for this dish worked out perfectly as far as getting a nice even layer on the bottom, but as far as for this recipe, I would add at least another cup of zucchini to this recipe if I make it in the future, or even double it, because zucchini is so low carb and so delicious. So I would probably make this recipe in a bigger dish next time with more zucchini, but for now I just spread that out into an even layer, and I am going to plop our chicken and cheese mixture right on top of this and spreading that out with a spatula. I am going to top it with another half a cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese and another half a cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And I'm gonna pop this whole thing into a 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes. And here it is when it comes out. Look at this nice brown crust top. Here it is plated up with just a tiny bit of parsley on top for effect's sakes. This was absolutely delicious. And again, just double the zucchini. Just double the zucchini, steam it, get the excess moisture out of it, and it'll be even better. The zucchini held its texture really well, even storing in the refrigerator and reheating for keto lunches all week. I highly recommend making this very simple recipe with few ingredients, quick to throw together. Now last up this week, we have the smoky mac and cheese bites recipe. It was what I was inspired by, but I made it into a casserole. I probably should rewrite that recipe, but I'll just link the original down below. So over in a saucepan pot, I added 2 tablespoons of butter and a half a cup of heavy cream, and over medium heat I'm whisking those together until they are melted and combined. After they're hot but before they're boiling, I am adding about 3/4 a cup of extra sharp shredded cheddar cheese, and also whisking that in until it thickens and forms a nice cheese sauce. Then I'm just going to remove that off of the heat. Now over into a large mixing bowl, I'm adding 14 ounces of smoked sausage that I just chopped into half moons, and then I'm adding 3 to 4 cups of cauliflower rice. Now I did thaw this so that it wouldn't have too much excess liquid in it. 1/4 of a teaspoon sea salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon ground black pepper. Just gonna pour that cheese sauce straight over the top of this. Now this wasn't as thick of a mixture as I would like, so in the future I would steer away from this recipe that she wrote and probably add more cheese to make it a little thicker. But anyhow, mixing that all together with my spoon, adding in a couple large eggs, and mixing those in really well. Now I'm taking about a 3.5 quart oval casserole dish, spraying it with some nonstick spray, and then I'm just going to pour this whole mixture into the dish, and I am topping it with about a half a cup of extra sharp shredded cheese. And I'm gonna pop this whole thing into a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. Here's what it looks like when it comes out. You can see it is still bubbling away. This was so tasty. Here it is plated up. Great flavor, but you can see there's a lot more liquid on my plate than you would normally see with the recipes that I cook. Should have maybe steamed the cauliflower rice a little bit more to get some more of the excess moisture out of it, as well as I said before, just more cheese to the sauce to just make a thicker cheese sauce. The recipe still tasted delicious. As always, I think I forgot to mention, with your sausage, make sure you double, triple check it to get the lowest carb sausage that you can. They like to throw all kinds of excess junk in there that you just don't want or need. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's keto dinner recipes and low carb meal ideas to get you through your ketogenic diet. Now that we're in the new year, we're planning some new content, some bonus cooking videos here and there other than our weekly keto dinner recipe videos. So if you have any suggestions for those, if there are any type of videos that you would like to see from us, specific topics, questions about the ketogenic diet or keto cooking that you have, recommendations, you name it, put those down below in the comments section. Vacation was great, but now we're trying to get into the planning mode for the upcoming year. Hope you all had a great new year. Hope 2021 is going to be great to all of us. And until next week, bye y'all.